Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing just that. We're diving deep into some specific source material.
That's right. We've got the class notes from AcademiaBSB. It's for Group T243, their lesson on May 28th, 2025.
And the topic sounds interesting. A special class about Christmas Eve invitations to school friends and neighbors.
Yeah, and it's aimed at CEFRL level A1. That's, the common European framework of reference for languages. A1 is pretty much the beginner level, basic interactions.
So our mission today is to really get into these notes, not just read them, but unpack what the key learning points were.
Exactly. And see what the structure tells us about how they approach teaching at this level. We want to understand the learning journey for this group, T243.
Okay, looking at the notes, it seems really structured, lots of different sections.
Definitely. It looks like they try to cover all the angles. Vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar.
Right, I see vocabulary building, pronunciation guidance, language usage, idiomatic expressions, grammar, reading, writing, listening, speaking, training.
And even homework, references, class stats, and what's coming next. It's pretty comprehensive for one lesson.
So the plan is to walk through these sections, see how they fit together.
Yeah, how they all build towards, better communication for these learners.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. Section 1, vocabulary building.
Makes sense. Got to have the words right.
And they've split it into current class and past class vocabulary. That seems smart.
Yeah, reviewing past stuff is crucial, especially at A1. You need that reinforcement.
So for the current class, related to invitations and parties, they list award with examples like Oscars, Golden Globes, trophy, pastry.
A bit fancy, perhaps, but also practical stuff like late, arrived, lady, famous, mixer.
And then specific things, instant noodle,
Yeah.
and concepts like fancy with extravagant as a synonym.
Also comparisons like more versus less and expensive with the dollar signs versus cheap and specialty. Quite a range.
What stands out is the food vocabulary, lots of detail there.
Totally. Different ways to cook, like to bake a cake, to fry French fries, to boil pasta.
Plus categories, pastries, like cake, bread, cookies, vegetables, carrot, lettuce, onion, tomato, potatoes.
And even specific Italian food, like pasta and lasagna.
Which, thinking about the theme Christmas invitations, makes perfect sense. Food's often central, isn't it?
Absolutely. Knowing how to talk about food for parties is super practical.
Okay, so that's the new stuff. Then there's the review of past class vocabulary. They had exercises.
Yeah, the notes mention a complete the sentences activity. It looks like they provided sentences with blanks for words from the previous lesson.
I see. Like, it's strange when people love their cat. Don't bite your nails. Can you describe the weather?
Right. And the criminal was caught. She got the role of a teacher. It is impolite to talk.
Also, my grandmother eats porridge. The workers mixed cement, and never clean your ears with a Q-tip. Good mix of practical and maybe slightly random words there.
Keeps it interesting, maybe. They also had a true or false exercise.
Statements like, it is polite to bite your nails. False, hopefully.
Right. And a criminal is someone who breaks the law. True. Q-tip is a kind of food. Definitely false. We use cement to make buildings stronger. True.
And finally, writing sentences with words like criminal, strange, impolite, roll, and porridge.
So yeah, a solid review structure. It really shows they're building block by block.
Okay, moving on from words to sounds, pronunciation guidance.
Just as important, right? You need people to understand you when you use those new words.
Especially if you're inviting someone over, don't want any mix-ups. The notes show they reviewed past class words first.
Things like independence, vitamins, exercise, enough, muscles, healthy, should. Quite a few.
Seen, though, ham, also, costumes, either than Christ. Seems like a focus on common, tricky sounds or words.
And then for the current class, the focus shifted to contrasting sounds. Minimal pairs.
Yes, like rich versus reach. Big difference in meaning.
Huge. Or chip versus cheap. You don't want to mix those up when you're talking about prices.
Definitely not. And live versus leave.
These pairs are so good for beginners because they highlight how a tiny sound change makes a completely different word.
The notes also point out specific vowel sounds. The A sound in battery and flatter.
And the E sound, like in bakery and fake. Getting these sounds right early on is key for clarity.
So vocabulary pronunciation. Next is language usage, putting it all together.
Yeah, moving from single words and sounds to actual phrases and sentences you can use.
They have a correction example here. Correcting her son, my son's friend, to he is friends with my son.
That's a classic beginner structure issue. Good to address it directly. Shows the right way to talk about relationships.
Then there's a list of useful phrases. To be late. It looks cheap. It looks delicious. Very practical.
I didn't count on you. Maybe for unexpected guests. I hope you like it. Definitely useful when offering food.
To be stuck with. You forgot to say she is rude. She is stuck up. Some social commentary there.
And how to use award-winning, like award-winning chef or actor. Nice compound adjective.
What I really like here is how they personalize it. Things we have in common for specific students.
Yeah, for Myers and Anna, we wake up early, we have 2 kids, we have 2 pets, real-life connections.
And for Tamara's and Noyan, we love each other, we have husbands.
It shows exactly how to use the language to talk about their own lives and relationships. Super relevant for the theme of connecting with friends and neighbors.
Okay, next section in the notes is idiomatic expressions.
Always a fun challenge. Idioms, where the meaning isn't literal.
But crucial for sounding more natural, right? And understanding casual conversation.
Totally. The notes list a few. White elephant in the room.
Which they explain as like a big obvious problem everyone ignores.
Then backup plan. The example is about bad weather ruining plans. Makes sense.
Let's move on. For ending a little disagreement, maybe?
Here you go. Simple, but you use it all the time when handing something over.
What's wrong with you? Asking why someone's acting weird or badly?
Go on. Like telling kids not to fight.
A shoulder to cry on. Someone supportive when you're sad.
And break the ice, like telling a joke to get people talking.
Including these, even at A1, is pretty cool. Gives them a taste of more figurative language used in social situations.
Now, onto the backbone of sentences. Grammar.
And for this lesson, the big focus was simple past verbs.
Foundational stuff. You need the past tense to talk about. Well, the past, like what happened at a party.
The notes give a good list. Regular and irregular verbs. Tell, owe, told, miss, missed, bring, brought, buy, bought.
Bake, decorated, no, you show up, showed.
Have, had, laugh, laughed, follow, choose, choice of.
Cost, that one stays the same.
Painted, reminded, traded, opened.
Mastering these is just essential for recounting events, like who brought what dish or who showed up late.
Exactly. Okay, after grammar, the notes mention a reading section.
It references something called Unfortunate Christmas Invitation and has a video tag.
So, likely a text connected to a video. Maybe they read a story or a script related to the theme. Good way to see the vocabulary and grammar in context, right? Get some input.
For sure. And that leads naturally into the writing section.
Which sounds like a direct follow-up. They had to become a storyteller and write a movie report.
Yeah, after watching the first part of that Unfortunate Christmas Invitation short film.
The task was pretty specific. Describe what happens, who's in it, what they do, say, feel.
Using both simple present for general descriptions maybe, and simple past for the film's events, and a 200-word minimum.
They also gave tips, like using sequence words. First, then after that, finally. Really helpful for structuring a narrative.
Definitely. And interestingly, under the writing section, there's this text, a chip, a sip, and a friendship trip.
Yeah, I saw that. It looks like a full story, not student work.
Exactly. And if you look closely, it's packed with the vocabulary from the lesson. Arrived, bring, fake, cook, rich, chip, cheap, bakery, famous, friendship.
And tons of simple past verbs. Arrived, bring, did not bring, cook, prepared, did they buy, met, came, was talked, loved, laughed. It's all in there.
So it feels like this text serves as a model. Like, here's an example of how you can use all the language we just learned to tell a story.
That makes a lot of sense. A kind of integrated practice text reinforcing everything for the writing task. Very useful.
Okay, what's next? Listening?
The notes just listed as a section, no details on the actual activity.
Fair enough. But including it shows they value developing listening skills, which is key for understanding conversations, invitations, all that.
Then there's a watching section listed in the template.
But it seems like it was either skipped or maybe combined with the reading video part in this lesson's notes. Not much detail there.
All right, then speaking training. This is where it all comes together, ideally.
Right, using the vocab, pronunciation, grammar, phrases in actual speech.
The notes say it focuses on pronunciation and the pace of speaking. That's interesting.
Yeah, not just sounding right, but sounding natural in rhythm and speed. It mentions the teacher identifying common mistakes and proposing practice texts.
No specific text is given here, but the goal seems clear. Active production, moving from knowing the language to using it fluently and confidently, like actually making that Christmas invitation.
Makes sense. Then there's homework.
Again, just listed as a section, no assignment details in this source. but shows learning continues outside class.
Bibliographic references next, a place for extra resources.
Though the only note here is just unit. A bit incomplete.
Maybe a placeholder.
Yeah.
Then, upcoming linguistic scope.
Ah, preview. Next class is about prepositions. Good for students to know what's coming.
And finally, we get to the class stats, some numbers on the lesson.
This is quite detailed. Vocabulary growth listed as 0-word. Maybe that means focus was on consolidation.
Could be. Comprehensive lexicon repertory, 1,710 words. That's the total vocabulary they've supposedly been exposed to.
Oral fluency and speech engagement span, 50 minutes. Listening wavelength, that's 69 minutes total.
And phonetic deviation ratio, negative 69%. That negative number is interesting. Might indicate the perceived degree of pronunciation difference from a standard, suggesting pronunciation was a big focus area, which matches the earlier sections.
So these stats offer a kind of data snapshot of the class activities and maybe challenges?
Yeah, gives another perspective. And the notes mention a footnote about the Students.AcademiaBSB.
Right. Recommending post-class review of notes, using links, and it lists bonuses like a class podcast like this, and the class statistics we just saw.
So this kind of analysis seems built into their system.
Okay, so stepping back and looking at this whole deep dive into the T243 notes, it's a really structured, integrated approach.
Definitely. Even at the A1 level, they're connecting vocabulary sounds, grammar, usage, and skills practice around a relevant theme.
It moves logically from the building blocks to actual communication tasks like reading a story, writing about it, and presumably speaking about invitations.
Every piece seems designed to support the main goal, helping learners actually use English in social situations. It's not just abstract rules.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Seeing how a single lesson breaks down language into all these manageable parts, sounds, words, sentences, stories, idioms, but always connects them back together.
It really makes you think about how progress happens. It's not just learning one thing, but seeing how all the pieces fit and practicing them together. So here's something to consider. How does recognizing this interconnectedness, seeing how vocabulary supports grammar, how pronunciation affects usage, how it all builds towards fluency, how does that change the way you might approach your own learning goals, whatever they might be?